New York City, the 14th of September, 1992, Monday morning, 8:47 a.m. The Quantum Fund offices occupy the entire 33rd floor of a building on 7th Avenue. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlook Manhattan. The conference room where George Soros just called an emergency meeting holds 12 people around a granite table: senior traders, risk managers, portfolio analysts, the fund's entire investment committee. They're confused. Emergency meetings don't happen at Quantum. Soros runs a tight ship, structured, disciplined. You don't interrupt trading hours for drama unless something catastrophic just happened. Stanley Druckenmiller sits closest to Soros, chief trader, 39 years old, built the macro strategy that made Quantum legendary. Smart, methodical, conservative with position sizing. He's staring at the papers Soros just distributed. His face has gone pale. Soros stands at the head of the table, 62 years old, grey hair, glasses, wearing a dark suit, no tie. He looks calm, too calm for what he's about to propose. The papers show one position: British pound sterling, short, size, $10 billion. Someone says it first. 10 billion? Soros nods. A risk manager speaks up. George, our entire fund is 7 billion. You want to short more sterling than we have in capital. That requires massive leverage. If this trade moves against us even 5%, we're wiped out. It won't move against us, Soros says. You can't know that. I can. The room shifts. Uncomfortable. Quantum Fund has a culture of rigorous analysis, data-driven decisions, risk-adjusted returns. This isn't that. This is one man saying bet everything on a single trade. Druckenmiller speaks. His voice carries weight here. George, I built the sterling thesis. I agree Britain's position in the ERM is unsustainable. I've been running models for 3 weeks. But I was thinking we short 2 billion. Maybe 3 if we're aggressive. 10 billion is insane. If we're wrong, the fund dies. Soros doesn't react, just waits. Another trader jumps in. We've never concentrated this much capital in one position, ever. Our risk models don't even account for this scenario. This breaks every portfolio management principle we follow. Good, Soros says. Silence. Good? Someone repeats. Soros walks to the windows, looks out at Manhattan. The city hums below. Millions of people going about their Monday. None of them know what's about to happen in London. None of them understand the pressure building inside the European exchange rate mechanism. But Soros understands. He turns back to the room. Let me explain why this isn't crazy. Let me show you why this is the most certain trade we'll ever see. Everyone leans in. When Soros teaches, you listen. The ERM requires Britain to keep the pound within a fixed band against the Deutsche Mark, currently trading at 2.95 marks per pound. Britain joined in 1990 at an overvalued rate because Thatcher wanted to prove Britain belonged in European monetary integration. But the rate was wrong from the start. He picks up a marker, walks to the whiteboard, starts writing numbers. Germany just reunified. They're pumping money into East Germany. Inflation rising. Bundesbank raising interest rates to control it. Currently at 10%. More numbers. Britain is in recession. Unemployment rising. Housing market collapsing. They need lower interest rates to stimulate growth. But if they lower rates while Germany raises them, capital flows out of Britain into Germany. The pound weakens, falls below the ERM floor. He draws a line representing the ERM band. To defend the peg, Britain has 3 options. 1. Raise interest rates to match Germany. But that deepens their recession, destroys their economy. Politically impossible. 2. Buy sterling with foreign reserves. But they only have 40 billion in reserves. We can short more than that. 3. Convince Germany to lower rates. But Germany won't. Bundesbank doesn't care about Britain's recession. He caps the marker. Britain is trapped. They can't raise rates enough. They can't defend the peg long enough. They will run out of options. The only question is when. The room is quiet. They've heard this thesis. Druckenmiller presented it 2 weeks ago. But hearing Soros lay it out with this clarity makes it feel inevitable. A portfolio manager speaks. I agree with the thesis. But timing is everything. What if they hold out longer than we can stay solvent? What if Germany blinks and lowers rates? What if the EU steps in with emergency support? They won't, Soros says. I spoke with the Bundesbank governor last week. Germany is committed to fighting inflation. They won't sacrifice their domestic policy to save Britain's currency peg, and the EU doesn't have the structure to coordinate emergency support fast enough. Another manager? But 10 billion. Why so large? If the thesis is right, we make money at 2 billion. Why risk the entire fund? And this is where Soros teaches them something they'll remember for the rest of their careers. When you see something, Soros says, bet big. He walks back to the table, sits down, looks each person in the eye. This isn't speculation. This is asymmetric opportunity. Let me show you the math. He pulls out a calculator, starts writing. If I'm wrong, what's our downside? Sterling rises, but it can't rise much. It's already at the top of the ERM band. Britain can't defend it upward. Maximum loss, 4%. On 10 billion, that's 400 million. Bad, but survivable. He writes more. If I'm right, what's our upside? Sterling breaks the peg, falls 10 to 15%. Conservative estimate. On 10 billion, that's 1 billion profit, possibly more. He circles the numbers. 400 million downside, 1 billion upside. That's 10 to 1 odds on a trade I'm 99% certain about. Someone starts to speak. Soros raises a hand. I'm not finished. Here's what you're missing. This isn't just about the math. This is about conviction, about recognizing when the universe hands you a gift and having the courage to take it. He stands again, paces. In 1981, I missed a similar opportunity. The Reagan administration was defending an overvalued dollar. I saw it, understood it, built a thesis, but I sized the position conservatively. 2% of the fund. When the dollar broke, we made money, but not enough. Not what we should have made. I let caution override conviction. His voice gets quieter, more intense. I swore I wouldn't make that mistake again. When you see something this clear, you don't tiptoe. You jump in with both feet. You risk looking stupid. You risk failing spectacularly. But you bet big, because that's the only way to capture the full opportunity. Druckenmiller is watching Soros carefully. He's seen this before. This isn't recklessness. This is calculated certainty. The difference between gambling and investing. Gamblers bet when they don't know. Investors bet big when they do know. Soros continues, we're not betting against the pound, we're betting that politicians won't commit economic suicide. That's the key insight. Britain could defend the peg, technically. They could raise interest rates to 20%, 30%, force capital to stay. But at what cost? Mass unemployment, housing collapse, social unrest. No government survives that. He points at the papers. Politicians choose re-election over currency pegs. Every time. Throughout history, we're betting on human nature, on self-preservation, on the certainty that when forced to choose between economic destruction and currency devaluation, they choose devaluation. A junior analyst raises her hand. What if you're wrong about the timing? What if they hold out another month? We're paying massive interest on this short position. Then we hold, Soros says. The carrying cost is manageable. 2% per month. We can sustain it for 6 months if necessary. But we won't need to. The pressure is building. Their reserves are depleting. Speculators are circling. This ends soon. The risk manager who spoke earlier tries again. George, I understand the thesis. I even believe it. But 10 billion breaks every risk management protocol we've established. We have limits for a reason. This position is 5 times our maximum concentration limit. Soros nods. You're right. It breaks the rules. Know why? Because the rules are designed for normal situations. This isn't normal. This is a once-in-a-decade opportunity. Maybe once in a lifetime. The rules exist to protect us from uncertainty. But I'm not uncertain. I'm certain. He walks back to the whiteboard, draws a timeline. Here's what happens next. Today is Monday. Britain is bleeding reserves. By Wednesday, they'll be in crisis. Thursday at the latest, the Bank of England will raise rates. It won't work. Capital will keep fleeing. By Friday, they capitulate, devalue or exit the ERM. He circles Friday. 48 hours. Maybe 72. That's how long we're exposed to maximum risk. And during those hours, I'll be watching. If anything changes, if Germany signals support, if the EU coordinates intervention, we cut the position. But that won't happen. I've gamed every scenario. Britain is alone. Their position is mathematically unsustainable. And we're going to profit from that reality. The room is quiet. Not because they're convinced, because they're processing. Trying to reconcile their training, their instincts, their fear with what Soros is saying. Druckenmiller breaks the silence. I need to ask directly, are you betting the fund on this? If sterling somehow rallies 5%, we're finished. 20 years of returns. Gone. Is that what you're doing? Soros meets his eyes. Yes. No hesitation. No qualification. Just yes. Because I'm right. And being right in size is the only way to build real wealth. Being right in small size is a waste of being right. He points at Druckenmiller. You built this thesis. You did the research. You know Britain can't hold. The only difference between us is I'm willing to bet accordingly. You want to risk 2 billion. I want to risk 10. Why? Because I trust the analysis. Your analysis. But I trust it more than you do. That lands. Druckenmiller looks at his notes, the models he built, the scenarios he tested. Soros is right. The thesis is sound. The math is clear. The only question is courage. Soros sits back down. Let me tell you what this moment is really about. It's not about the pound. It's about who you are as traders. Are you people who see opportunities and take them? Or are you people who see opportunities and explain why you can't take them? He looks around the table. Every person in this room is smart. Every person here can build models and analyze markets and identify mispricings. But very few people, when they identify certainty, act on it. They find reasons to be cautious, to hedge, to protect themselves from looking stupid. His voice gets harder. I don't care about looking stupid. I care about being right. And when I'm right, I want to make enough money that it matters. Not pocket change, not a modest return. Life-changing wealth, fund-defining profit. That's why we're here. That's why you work at Quantum instead of some bank. Because we bet big on high-conviction ideas. A trader near the end of the table speaks up. What if you're right about Britain devaluing but wrong about the magnitude? What if they only devalue 5% instead of 15%? We still make money but not enough to justify the risk. Soros shakes his head. Once the peg breaks, the fall accelerates. Markets smell blood. Other speculators pile in. Hedge funds, banks, central banks in other countries selling sterling reserves. This won't be a controlled devaluation. It'll be a rout. 10% minimum. Probably 15. Possibly 20. He taps the table. But even if I'm wrong about magnitude, even if they only drop 5%, we make 500 million. On a position I'm 99% certain wins. That's still the best risk-reward we'll see all year. Another pause. Soros lets it hang. Lets them think. Then he says the thing that changes the room. Are you traders or accountants? The question hangs. Sharp. Challenging. Because if you're traders, you understand what I'm proposing. You recognize opportunity. You calculate risk. You make decisions. But if you're accountants, you count risk without measuring reward. You protect the downside without capturing the upside. You survive but never thrive. He stands. I need to know which one you are, because I'm putting this position on. Today. Before London opens tomorrow. The only question is whether you're with me or whether I do it alone. Druckenmiller looks at his notes again. Looks at the models. Looks at Soros. Then he makes his decision. I'm in, Druckenmiller says. 10 billion. Let's do it. The room shifts. If Druckenmiller is in, the thesis has weight. He built it. He believes it. The other traders look at each other. One by one, they nod. Soros smiles, not triumphant, relieved. He wasn't bluffing. He would have done it alone if necessary, but having the team aligned makes execution easier. Good, Soros says. Let's go to work. The next 6 hours are chaos. Traders calling banks, setting up credit lines, structuring the short position across multiple counterparties to avoid detection. By 3 p.m., they've committed 8 billion. By 5 p.m., 10 billion. The position is on. Tuesday morning, September 15. London markets open. Sterling holds steady. Britain raises interest rates from 10 to 12%. Emergency measure, designed to defend the peg. Doesn't work. Capital keeps flowing out. The pound weakens. Still within the ERM band, but barely. Quantum fund is down 200 million. The position is bleeding. Druckenmiller walks into Soros's office. Markets aren't moving yet. Britain is defending harder than we expected. Should we reduce size? Soros doesn't look up from his newspaper. No. We're down 200 million. We'll be up 1 billion by Thursday. Druckenmiller leaves. Trusts the process. Trusts Soros. Wednesday morning, September 16, Black Wednesday. Britain raises rates again. 12 to 15%. Desperate measure. Traders at Quantum watch their screens. Sterling plunges. Britain buys billions in reserves. Doesn't work. The selling overwhelms them. By noon, the Bank of England is out of ammunition. By 2 p.m., they announce withdrawal from the ERM. Sterling collapses. Drops 15% in hours. Quantum Fund makes $1.1 billion in 48 hours. The conference room where Soros made his case is silent. Traders staring at screens, watching the number climb, watching history happen, watching Soros's conviction vindicated. Druckenmiller walks into Soros's office. Soros is reading. Same newspaper, same calm demeanor, like nothing happened. We made $1 billion, Druckenmiller says. Yes, Soros says. What did you learn? Druckenmiller sits down, thinks, then says the thing that will define his career. I learned the difference between being smart and being right in size. Soros nods. Most people never learn that. They think identifying opportunity is enough. It's not. You have to act on it, proportionally, courageously, without hedging your conviction. He closes the newspaper. You built the thesis. You did the work. But you wanted to bet $2 billion. Why? Fear, Druckenmiller admits. Fear of being wrong. Fear of losing the fund. Fear of looking stupid. And now? Now, I know fear is expensive. It costs you returns. It costs you opportunities. It costs you the difference between being right and being rich. Soros smiles. That lesson was worth $1 billion. Don't forget it. Druckenmiller never does. Years later, running his own fund, he'll size positions aggressively. He'll bet big on high-conviction ideas. He'll tell the story of the 14th of September 1992 to his own traders. The day George Soros taught him that consensus keeps you safe, but conviction makes you rich. The story spreads through the trading world. Not the billion-dollar profit. Everyone knows about that. But the meeting, the moment Soros stood in front of his team and asked, "Are you traders or accountants?" That question becomes legendary, gets repeated in trading floors across Manhattan, becomes a test of character. A way to separate people who see opportunities from people who explain why opportunities can't be taken. Because 10 billion wasn't reckless, it was calibrated. It was certainty translated into position size. It was a man who understood markets better than anyone else, acting on that understanding without hesitation. Soros never publicly discussed the trade size, never bragged. When reporters asked, he said only, "We saw something, we acted on it. That's what traders do." But inside Quantum, the lesson lived forever, written into the culture, embedded in how they thought about risk. Years later, a young analyst joins Quantum. His first week, Druckenmiller tells him the story, the meeting, the conviction, the question. Then Druckenmiller asks him, "Are you a trader or an accountant?" The analyst doesn't know how to answer. Druckenmiller smiles. You will. Eventually, every trader learns. Either you learn to act on certainty, or you spend your career protecting yourself from mistakes that never happen. The analyst asks what Druckenmiller learned that day. Druckenmiller says that being right in small size is a waste of being right. The lesson echoes, not just for traders, for anyone making decisions under uncertainty. The math is always the same. Calculate downside, measure upside, assess probability, then bet accordingly. Most people do the first 3 steps. Stop before the 4th. They see the opportunity, understand it, believe it, but don't act on it proportionally. They hedge, they protect, they survive, but never thrive. Soros didn't do that, couldn't do that. When he saw certainty, he bet accordingly, not recklessly, proportionally to his conviction. That's the difference. That's what separates legendary traders from competent ones. That's what 48 Hours in September 1992 taught everyone in that conference room. When you see something, bet big. Because certainty is rare. And when you find it, the only mistake is not betting enough.